Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural meeting of the JCLP President's Forum, presented to you by the Jewish Community Legacy Project, JCLP, and the Jewish Federations of North America, JFNA, Network of Independent Communities. My name is Ann Tettelbaum, and I co-chair the forum along with Marcia Storch and Sam Bernstein. We are members of the JCLP Board of Directors and have held leadership positions in small congregations, just as your own. Marcia from Olean, New York, and Sam from Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and I live near Jefferson City, Missouri. As you will soon hear, this forum is designed to be a resource for you. Today's agenda will include greetings from our partners, a brief presentation of the purpose, goals, and priorities of the forum, and a discussion of congregation engagement. That's the planning issue that you rated as your top priority. This meeting should last around an hour, and if it's not already muted, please keep your audio muted throughout the presentation. You may send questions and comments through the Zoom chat, and when you do so, please include your name, community, and state. Later in the program, you'll have an opportunity to unmute and share your thoughts about engagement. We've set up a social forum for you to interact with one another and to exchange contact information. And I can see from the discussion, there's going to be a lot of that. So thank you for your leadership and for your interest in this forum. I'm happy to call on Leslie Danon Rosenthal, Chair of the JCLP Board of Directors, to bring greetings, and she'll be followed by Edward Finkel, Managing Director of the JFNA, Network of Independent Communities. So Leslie, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Ann, and thank you for all your work on making this forum happen. So welcome to the inaugural meeting of the JCLP President's Forum. I grew up in a tiny conservative congregation in Rhode Island, and I'm a past president of my congregation in New Jersey. So I understand on a personal level all of the joys and challenges each of you faces. JCLP is proud to co-sponsor this initiative with JFNA's North American Network of Independent Communities, where I've also served. JCLP, as many of you know, works exclusively with small congregations throughout the United States and Canada. Our purpose is to help congregations plan, whether for short-term or long-term legacy needs. JCLP is not affiliated with any organization, but relies heavily on partnerships to provide congregations with planning resources not available on their own. JCLP is the brainchild of David Sarnat, to whom we all owe a debt of gratitude, and is helmed by Noah Levine, whose partnership I am extremely grateful for. JCLP has worked with over 100 congregations and has responded to initial inquiries from another 100 congregations. We also coordinate small regional congregation cohorts, and now JCLP is offering presidents of small congregations across the denominational and geographical spectrums the opportunity to learn from and to interact with one another in order to strengthen their institutions and provide meaningful experiences for their congregants. Thank you so much for participating. We all look forward to productive sessions and conversations.
It is, thank you, Leslie. It is good to join you, and I echo Leslie Danon Rosenthal's words of welcome to this inaugural meeting of the JCLP President's Forum. Thank you, Leslie, for your leadership for JCLP and everything else important in this Jewish world and beyond. The Jewish Federations of North America Network of Independent Communities is delighted to co-host this President's Forum with JCLP. And on behalf of Simone Canego, Network Chair, I am pleased to extend greetings to you all. The Jewish Federations of North America's Network of Independent Communities helps to enhance Jewish life and Jewish philanthropy continentally in hundreds of small communities that connects and impacts hundreds of Jews across the United States, from Maine to Florida, Alaska to Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and the US Virgin Islands. The Jewish Federations of North America supports flourishing Jewish life and the needs of the Jewish people locally and globally. The Jewish Federation system, in partnership with synagogue leadership, work to build and sustain Jewish communities that are healthy, safe, caring, welcoming, inclusive, educated, and engaged, involved in the broader community, and deeply connected to Israel and the global Jewish people, especially at times of crisis to address the needs of vulnerable, at-risk populations worldwide, whether the war in Ukraine, the devastation from the earthquake in Turkey, or the uplifting aliyah of Ethiopian Jews, reuniting them with their family in Israel. Flourishing Jewish communities are reflections of strong leadership, and Jewish Federations of North America express our appreciation for all of your dedication to all of your congregations. Thank you for participating. We all look forward to productive sessions and conversations this evening.
And now we'll turn the meeting over to Noah Levine, JCLP Senior Vice President.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you all for being here. Also want to welcome, in addition to David Sarnett, founder and president of JCLP, Steve Edelstein and Max Kleiman, colleagues who work with your congregations as well. So this evening's session is divided into two parts. First, we will have an overview to explain the purpose and scope of the President's Forum. Second, we will focus on engagement, the top-rated issues in the survey that we sent you earlier this year. 5 of your colleagues will present different engagement activities that they found successful. You will then have an opportunity to share any successes that you have had. And if we run out of time, we can certainly schedule our next meeting to continue this discussion because it is exceedingly important. Oh, here's our contact information, which all of you have, I'm sure. During this really brief presentation that I'm giving you about the overview of the President's Forum, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat along with your name, city, and state. Steve Edelstein will read them out, read the questions out at the end of my talk, and we can talk that through. By the way, Ed will save all of the chats, and in addition to the other material that I'm going to send you after the meeting, we'll have that as well as the whole list of the group. So you are a diverse group. We have about 225 presidents altogether in the states that are highlighted, in addition to 3 Canadian communities. Hold on. You're a diverse group. You represent congregations with 10 members up to 130 members. You're in metropolitan areas as well as small towns. And JCLP actually started working with communities in small towns around the country. You are affiliated with all of the denominations as well as you are non-affiliated. You have clergy, you have spiritual leaders. Some are full-time, some are part-time. Some of you have no clergy leaders. We were talking about this before the program started. This is a real issue, which we'll talk about a little later. And some of you are just lay-led. And all of you are dealing with 2 major issues. One is sustainability, sustaining your congregation through active, engaged, vital participation, as well as being realistic and looking into the future and ensuring your own legacy. Small congregations play an exceedingly important role in the American Jewish history. And your congregations, all of you, I've seen a number of your histories that you have written, about the congregations and the impact that you have made, not just in your own community, but in the Jewish world. You are some of the finest lay leaders in the Jewish communal system. David, Steve, Max, and I have all grown up in the Federation world. We've dealt with a lot of lay people. You are all phenomenal. And what you do and what your synagogue does is bring Jewish life to your communities. Absent that, there's nothing that will be there. Ed, okay, good. However, as we all know, you have challenges, and that's one of the reasons why this forum has been created, to address the challenges. It is not uncommon for presidents to feel alone in this position. For some, you have been president for 10, 15, 20 years. There are many tasks that need to be done and not always people to do them. How difficult to figure out how to get people to take responsibility, let alone to take over as president. Not only the burdens of the congregations are on your shoulders as president, but also you bear the weight of the temple's history, traditions, and memories. But you need not be alone. And that's where this forum comes in. And the first item on this slide is the most important. What's in it for me? It is absolutely appropriate that you ask yourself the question, am I going to get anything out of this? Our hope is that you will find the meaningful experience in this process, that you will find actionable items that will help you, and as a result, help your congregation. And you can pick and choose the issues that are important to you, and not everything will be relevant to you. And if you have something that we're not talking about, email us and we'll put it on the agenda. Also, this is designed to be a collegial support system and resources for you. What can I learn as president, and what advice can I give? And we'll have some of that later when we talk about engagement. We started off this process asking you to help define the agenda of the forum. And we divided it into two major areas. What are the planning issues for you and your leadership? And what are the program topics for your congregants? So what I'd like to do is show you the results of the survey. You can see in the green that engagement and its external correlate outreach was your top priority. And we'll get to that today. The second tier of issues, which are the red, yellow, archives, building, collaboration with other congregations, fundraising and marketing, somebody mentioned that earlier this evening, leadership succession, long-range planning, will be grouped together in the next meeting within the context of a planning process. And most of you know that the core mission of JCLP is to help congregations plan for their sustainability as well as for their legacy. The third tier, the ones in the blue, will most likely be addressed as subgroups, unless you all say that it rises to the level that you want to have a program, or at least part of a program dealing with it. And I mentioned earlier that we sent out a clergy, and Marvin Hurwitz from Williamsport was mentioning this earlier. We sent out a clergy support survey asking for your information about whether you have clergy needs or whether you need clergy needs. And even though some of them, and most of you that returned the survey indicated that you have no clergy needs at this time, the question is whether that will be true 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. So we're going to resend it and ask you if you would please fill it out. And if you have no clergy needs at this time, by all means, indicate that and send that back. There were some other issues that you identified that were not part of the checkoff that we sent. the issue of interpersonal conflicts and how do you manage internal political issues within your congregations. Somebody said that wouldn't it be nice for the presidents to get together either virtually or in person for a Shabbaton or adult convention or something similar to that. Someone indicated that you were involved heavily in the general community, and to have a discussion about what that means. Interfaith, which is a reality in the Jewish world, is something you would like. And then the Zoom and other virtual issues that need to be addressed to engage shut-ins, people who no longer feel comfortable working, coming in person to the synagogue. Okay, the planning issues on the previous slide defined the agenda of the forum. The program issues on this side are what you think will resonate with your congregants. Many congregations, now that we live in the Zoom world, provide in-person and virtual programming. JCLP has organized 7 regional cohorts, bringing together congregations in the same area to address common issues and to collaborate on programming on a diverse tablet of topics from holiday observance to history, culture, and Jewish learning. And we're even in the planning stage of creating more regional cohorts. But for the purposes of this forum, there are issues that are universal in scope that we are prepared to offer to all congregations represented in the forum. For example, based on the top-tiered topics, for Jewish issues, they can include the state of world Jewry, specifically the situation in Ukraine and Russia, or focus on current affairs in Israel. And JFNA could bring to this forum the best resources to talk about those issues. Cultural programs could offer music, lectures, or other art forms. And really, we're asking you to think about what you think would be relevant and of interest to your congregations. And we're prepared to develop planning and programming committees so that you can be involved in helping to develop these programs. So what we're asking you to do is to consider 4 things. And these 4 things are really, I guess, define the type of engagement that you as presidents in this president forum can get benefit from. One is the planning issues that appeal to the entire group. We will schedule quarterly meetings, just like we're doing tonight, so that they can be discussed. The issues that appeal to some presidents, we'll schedule meetings as requested by you, the subgroups. And then you'll think, collectively, we will think about what programs we want to offer to your congregants on a universal scale. And then the social forum will be ongoing. You're going to receive an email and instructions on how to register for the forum. And then there'll be the first question will deal with engagement. So what we're starting today is going to be continued, hopefully will be continued through the social forum. So it is our hope that the President's Forum will be an uplifting experience for you all. And that's the end of the presentation. I'm just wondering if Steve, did anybody submit any questions in the chat?
You know, really not at this point, Noah. Michael Goodman from Huntsville did ask whether those slides would be available for the group.
Everything will be available. Everything will be available. Does anybody want to unmute and ask a question, not make a comment, but ask a question? Carol Ostro from Manhattan.
Thank you. Yes, you mentioned, Noah, and thank you for doing this. It's so valuable and something that I definitely need to listen to other presidents, their problems, and how I can contribute perhaps to helping them. But one of my problems is that I have served 9 years. And I've been through a great deal and solved the problems and renovated and did, I'm sure all of you have done probably the same thing and perhaps more. And I also produce all the fundraisers. And there's nobody else who wants to take over the job. And I think 9 years, frankly, is too long. We need new blood. Nobody wants the job. How do you all solve this problem of ongoing new people? I have a vice president, a co-president. None of them really want the job. I don't know what to do because 9 years is enough for me.
Yes, yes, it is. I think that's an issue that resonates with a lot of people on this in this forum. And why don't we do two things? Why don't we put it into social forums so people can be talking to each other virtually, but we'll also add that to a topic that we will have in a future forum, because that's something that, and by the way, it won't take 9 years for us to get this on the agenda.
Please. Thank you.
Anybody else? Carol, Hunter, New York. Unmute yourself, please. You have to unmute yourself, Carol.
And I have been president of my congregation for more than 30 years. And think about giving that job away. I can't even write a list of all I have to do. And we're dwindling, and we finally started getting some younger people on our board, but the younger people don't have the time to spend on it. And I don't know where, I mean, when the first 5 years of my presidency, I wasn't even a legal member of the congregation because it was formed as Orthodox and women weren't allowed to be members. We had to change the bylaws pretty quickly to get me to be legal. But that's a big issue for me too, is how do we pass it on?
Okay, I think what we'll do is we will definitely make that, available. And if you have any comments that you want to put in the chat, Ed will capture them so that we'll be able to send that out to everybody. And
I know how to write a chat, but I don't know how to send it.
so what I think what we'll do is, because one of the things that we didn't mention is that for all of our sake, these meetings should be an hour and 15 minutes. I don't think anybody has Zoom patience for beyond that. So I think what we're going to do is you'll write any chat comments that you have, and we'll go to the next session or section of the program dealing with your number one issue, which is engagement. So let me just get it down.
Noah,
Yeah.
Laurie had her hand raised. Looks like she has a question.
Okay, Laurie. You got to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Okay, I'm Lori Schwartz. I'm from Waukesha, Wisconsin. We have about 70 families, but we're slowly diminishing. My question is, you said something about regional groups, and I'm really interested in that. I don't know if there's one in the Midwest at this point, but I wanted to know more
Steve
about what's going
Edelstein, you want to answer that?
Yes, Lori, there is, but it's new. We put together about 13 congregations, including yours. We had one program dealing with the high holidays, and we have a program coming up actually a week from Sunday. We've been dealing through the clergy. So if you're not aware of it, you may want to talk to your appropriate person. And I don't have my list in front of me.
Cantor Levson.
Cantor Levson, yes, by all
Yeah.
means. And then we can get some stuff to you directly as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good, good. Okay, let's see. Slideshow, current slide. Okay. So Engagement consists of an internal dimension focusing on your current members, and engagement also consists of an external dimension, which is outreach to prospective new members. This evening, because of time, we will focus on internal engagement, but also internal engagement is important because a cohesive, vibrant congregation is often a reason for prospective members to consider connecting with the synagogue. And we will focus on outreach at a later meeting. Engagement, by the way, is not just for small congregations. My synagogue has almost 600 members, and it's a real issue. My son's father-in-law synagogue, which is the largest Reform one in the country with 3,500 members, and they too have a real issue of trying to get people engaged. And what does it mean? It means going from helping your congregations to go from nothing to something to more, and to sustaining their involvement. And it means really increasing attendance at services and programs, increasing volunteers, donors, and what we've just heard in the last few speakers is the whole issue of getting people willing to step up to the plate and to take on leadership roles. And there was somebody that wrote in the chat about, I think Pat Schnetzer wrote in the chat about rotating presidents, and Doug Krennick from Parkersburg, West Virginia. That was one of the first things I learned about their rotating. And we're gonna, as I said, we're gonna focus on that. The last bit of, I guess, general comments is engagement is really determined by an emphasis. There are some congregations that for them, the building is really the synagogue, and they will make decisions that will ensure that the building is around as best as they can to the expense of the congregants. Then you have congregations that are program centered, which basically says, okay, we have an adult education program at 7 o'clock at night. And I go and say, I can't go. And they say, so sorry, but when you can go, we would welcome you. What our focus is a people-centric approach. And that's what we're going to hear about tonight. And we're going to be talking about it going forward, which is how do you put your congregant at the center and make your decisions, whether it has to do with your building, with your programs, with your infrastructure. How do you make that resonate with your congregants so that you can get the most engaged congregation as possible? So what we're going to do now is we're going to hear 5 examples of engagement initiatives. And after we hear the 5 mini case studies, we'll call on you to unmute so you can share briefly your success stories or your challenges. We're not going to get to all of you, and we'll, again, the social forum will be an opportunity, or with our next meeting, we'll pick up where we left off. And what we asked them was to answer the question, engagement has increased in my congregation as a result of, and here are the five issues. So our first person is David Feldman, president of the Malvern Jewish Center on Long Island, New York City. And he's going to talk about personal congregant interviews. Ann Tettelbaum, who you met, who was the chair of the Long Range Planning Committee at Temple Bethel in Jefferson City, Missouri, she will talk about how the relationship between oral history and other historical legacy projects and engaging the congregation. Cindy Brunswick, who is co-president of Temple B'nai Abraham in Elyria, Ohio, will talk about the activities outside of the synagogue building that are focused on social engagement. Ryan Golden, who is president of Congregation Beth Israel in Gulfport, Mississippi, will talk about the strategy of diversifying programming to get more people engaged. And finally, Marcia Storch, past president at Congregation B'nai Israel and also a member of the JCLP board, along with Ann, as she mentioned earlier, will talk about hanging on as best as possible to dedicated volunteers. So, but before we get to them, I just want to briefly show you what I'm going to send you. We're going to send you an engagement checklist with a whole bunch of questions that could help serve as a basis for your strategic planning. And again, this will be helpful, and you as a collective will be helpful. So the first thing is the engagement foundations. How well do you know your congregants? And then I'd mentioned earlier, attendance, volunteerism, donating, and then leadership succession. And then the second is the culture of engagement. Do you see yourself as a mishpacha? Are you as presidents the engagement cheerleaders? Do you have a board that really is assigned to members so that they can be an ongoing liaison and voice for your congregants' concerns and suggestions? And then there's the critical issue of data collection, and David's going to talk about that shortly. Is there a process for learning about your congregants? Do you have a system for social mapping so you can group them according to friends? Do you track attendance at synagogue functions? Do you hold parlor meetings based on cohorts to brainstorm and engage these special subgroups in your congregation? And then caring connections. Is there a process for individualizing your communication? Do you have chesed committees? Do you recognize your congregants' achievements and their children and grandchildren? Is there a follow-up process to thank people? Do you include Zoom participants? Do you encourage congregants to bring their non-member friends to synagogue activities? Do you encourage congregants to bring their non-member friends to synagogue activities or services? I'll send all this to you, but what's really important is for you to be adding to this list your engagement issues that you have found successful, so we can create a living, organic document that will be helpful for everybody. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over. David, Dave, please unmute yourself. Dave from Malvern, and you're up first.
There, it worked. Thank you, Noah, and good evening, everyone. It's certainly a pleasure to meet you all. In the interest of time, I know Noah had asked us to prepare prepared remarks, but in the interest of time, I'm going to water them down if you don't mind. And if there's any more elaboration you need, just ask the question or do it through the chat or whatever other means we have. Let me just say that our survey had three goals, okay? First, to learn what members and prospective members expect from a synagogue. And two, how well we are fulfilling those wants and needs. And finally, what initiatives do we need to put in place to address where we're falling short, as highlighted by the survey. Let me just say that the survey that I'm addressing was actually a series of surveys conducted to address the reasons or what we can do about the dwindling of our numbers, which were mostly the result, I'm sure you're all experiencing the same thing, of demographic changes to our geographic area and the aging of our population. The survey was conducted by telephone using a fixed interview form to make sure that we obtain the kind of feedback that we were after. One common theme noted from that feedback, and this could be classified as my executive summary, okay, was that our shul's lay leadership was removed from the average congregant when it came to active involvement in the everyday life of our shul. And also in the decision-making, which would affect the well-being of the synagogue. This lack of a skin in the game on the part of our average congregant, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, okay, but this is the non-leadership congregant, okay? That kind of mindset on the part of the average congregant not only impaired our efforts to expand active involvement in the synagogue, but exacerbated a situation where the responsibilities of administering the synagogue, we're left at a very few. And from Noah's from Noah's slides, I'm sure you'll agree that I'm not alone, or we're not alone in that kind of situation. So the question was, how do we use the feedback garnered from the interviews to increase member and even non-member participation, so we have a more vibrant and inclusive congregation? One that will enhance, again, or create that skin in the game mindset on the part of our congregants, and encourage more members to participate in the operating of our synagogue, where it shouldn't be left at a very few. First and foremost, we created a project team consisting of so-called rank and file members. While officers served on the project steering committee, the real work was performed by non-officers, non-leadership. The real work was performed by those who conducted the telephone interviews, who not only heard the words of the interviewee, but was able to feel the emotions connected with those words. This proved very valuable in determining what changes we needed to make in order to remove any impediments to wider congregant engagement and to encourage active involvement of more members in the life of our shul. Again, try to create that skin in the game mindset. The message we heard loud and clear was a feeling of non-engagement, of being left out in the running of the synagogue and the planning of its religious and non-religious programs. As mentioned, those responsibilities and privileges were left at a very few, with little input from the rank and file member. In order to remedy this situation and to encourage wider participation by the membership, the project team recommended changes to the governance structure of the synagogue. Instead of a structure where the leadership made all of the decisions and did virtually everything, did all the work, the project team recommended that small teams be created to take on the various tasks associated with governing and running the synagogue. These teams would consist of non-leadership volunteers who would be responsible for such tasks as publicity and outreach, ritual and religious program planning, other program planning, membership recruitment, etc. Each of these volunteer teams would be empowered to make decisions which would drive the synagogue and its programs, significantly expanding decision-making and most importantly, engaging a larger portion of our congregate body in the everyday life of the synagogue. Draw them in. That was our goal. Each of these teams would report to a responsible officer and would be accountable to the Board of Trustees and report on their activities monthly at our monthly board meetings. No longer would the very few be responsible for running the synagogue and planning its programs, but those responsibilities would now be taken on by the broader congregate body, who would once again have that skin in the game mindset, okay, that only active engagement can accomplish. So the question is, how have we done? All right. Well, while the governance approach has been put in place and has significantly enhanced the feeling of belonging that the interviews indicated was lacking, we're still not there yet. And are continuing to work on new programs and ways to spread the wealth of certain tasks and continue to promote even wider engagement of our current members, and perhaps even recruit new members as the word spreads about our very inclusive congregation. As a result of the outreach interviews, we know what needs to be done to increase congregant engagement, and we'll continue our efforts to achieve that goal. In summary, we found from the interviews that that there was a chasm. Okay, there was the rank and file congregant, and there was the leadership. And what's the saying? Never the train shall meet. Okay, our goal was to have them meet and to get more people involved, both for the advantage of that involvement and, frankly, to relieve some of the burden on the very few. So once again, the surveys didn't hold many surprises. Okay, but on the other hand, it did provide a direction for us as to what needs to be done. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Mhm.
We can make available Dave's survey and other surveys from synagogues, so that won't be a problem. You may have questions and comments on each of the speakers, but again, for the ease of time, we're going to just move on to the other speakers, and then we'll open it up at the end of the meeting. So I turn the next one over to Ann Teitelbaum, Jefferson City. Don't forget to unmute yourself, Ann.
Yeah, thank you. When Temple Bethel finished its legacy project, and we called it our long-range plan, not our legacy project, we began implementing several of the activities discussed in that plan. And I will say, just using those activities, which we would not have otherwise done without Noah's encouragement, in and of itself engaged many of our congregants who heretofore had really not been engaged. One in particular is we did an oral history project. We did it on our own because Noah led us to several experts who helped us and who read our summaries of our transcripts. We were pleased that we were able to donate 2 volumes of oral histories, including the transcripts to the American Jewish Archives. But what I found really interesting was that those members who participated in the oral histories were able to look back and recall what it was like when they first set foot in Temple Bethel. And they realized that there had been members before them who invited them to activities and who were very welcoming. And almost on the spot, they realized that they could step in the shoes of those people now. And I think had we not had those oral histories, we would not have that increased engagement from those people. And the purpose of our oral history was not to have biographies, but it was to preserve the recollections of people who had participated in our temple's activities and contributed to its continuance as a Jewish lay-led congregation in our state's capital. We also had several other activities that increased participation by members. One of those was uploading information about our cemetery and our yard site boards into Jewish Gen. I think we're the only congregation in Missouri who has put our cemetery information onto Jewish Gen. We've also recently engaged congregants by sending out yard site reminder letters, not only to our own congregation, but to families of those on our yard site board who has moved away. We did this not as a fundraiser, but as it happens, it did increase some of our funding because people just automatically donated to us after receiving those reminders. Finally, in preserving our legacy, we made copies of our minutes and our sisterhood minutes to send them off to American Jewish Archives and to the Missouri Historical Society. And in doing this, we discovered that during World War II, our congregation had adopted a refugee family. And we actually were able to contact the little boy who is now in his 90s of that family and learn about his experiences in Jefferson City. He did recall them. So this and other stories about our past history made it into the local newspapers. And I can't say for sure, but I think that is why we had several previously unknown Jewish members of the community reach out and become members of our congregation. So I really believe that learning about our past community leadership and our generosity of our congregation has increased the engagement of all of our members. It has inspired them to participate in services more and to make each new guest and potential member especially welcome in our congregation. And we'd be happy to share some of those oral histories with anyone who's contemplating doing those on their own also.
Great, thank you, Ann. And you also created a Wikipedia page for your congregation.
We did.
Next, Sydney Brunswick from Elyria. Unmute yourself, please.
Hi, Noah. It's nice to meet you.
Hi.
And Steve, it's also nice to associate a face now. What I have to say, I don't think is anything unique. I will read what Noah asked me to write. Every week, once a week or so, and sometimes it's once every 2 weeks, I meet with our rabbi in what we call tag up. This is just to keep the rabbi and myself on track for present and future events. On occasion, our ritual chair and Sunday school chair join in. During one meeting toward the end of December, our rabbi brought up how nice it would be to have either Shabbat dinners together in a restaurant prior to services, or have someone host a potluck on a Saturday, as food always brings people together. I wrote an article in the Temple Bulletin asking for volunteers to host. We had 2 responses. One held a potluck brunch in January. There were about 30 people involved. Our congregation, by the way, is 55 members, family units. And another congregant volunteered, but no date has yet been set. Another member had a small gathering on Super Bowl Sunday for just one new couple. These have proved to be successful in getting to know our new members in a more relaxed and inviting setting. We also have dinners in the temple for Rosh Hashanah, Break the Fast, Hanukkah, and Tu B'Shvat, and we'll be having one for Purim. We have asked for kitchen help from our newest members to help set up and do cleanup for these dinners, which engages them to some extent. They have been more than willing, and here we get to know them more on a social basis. If a potential member or a guest joins us on Zoom for a Friday night service, we always try to make a point in introducing them and making them feel welcome. There are pros and cons of being a small synagogue, but one of the pros is we have that feeling of family. With no paid staff except for our rabbi, cantor, the soloist, and janitor, we have to encourage our members to step up to the plate, so to speak, to help out. I will admit it's not always easy, but we are making small strides.
Thank you, Sydney. Ryan Golden, Gulfport.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Golden. I'm from Gulfport, Mississippi. And for those of you who don't know or unaware of where that's at, I'm about 80 miles between to New Orleans and about 60 miles to Mobile. And what I'm about to tell y'all is something that you probably never would have thought in your wildest dreams of how we were able to get our engagement. But before I get to that, I'm going to give a little background information. We had a Chabad rabbi and his wife come to the Mississippi Gulf Coast about 7 years ago. And that Chabad rabbi was actually a member of our synagogue. Our synagogue's been around since my grandparents were actually one of the founders, so it's been around for 60 years. And so the Chabad rabbi was was one of the children in our Sunday school, and my mom actually taught him Sunday school when he was younger. So that's a little background on the Chabad rabbi. So for about 4 years, our synagogue was doing what it does, and the Chabad was doing what they do. Well, and I was involved in both. I would go to Chabad events as well as I was on the board of Congregation Beth Israel, because my thought was always the Gulf Coast, it's not big enough to have two Jewish organizations, but we'll see how long it goes. And obviously we each have different backgrounds, different traditions, etc. So I would go and support the Chabad events, and the rabbi would come and support our congregation events. But as we notice, as the years go on, our events, we didn't intend for this to happen, but they would compete with each other. And with there being only a small pot of Jewish people along the coast, it not only hurt our congregation, but it also hurt Chabad. So about 4 years ago, the rabbi and I, we were always very close. I'm 40, he's 35. So, I mean, our ages were close. We, grew up together, knew each other, et cetera, et cetera. So we started talking one night. We're like, what if we merged? Obviously, the Chabad's not doing too well on the coast. The congregation's not doing too good on the coast. What about if we merge and possibly, now granted, there's a lot of things that need to happen in order for this to happen, but what about if you become the full-time rabbi of Congregation at Beth Israel? And he was like, he had to think about it because our congregation was conservative. He goes, well, there's a lot of moving pieces. I said, I understand. Well, I was president at the time when we started that conversation. So I threw it to our board. And of course, the first thing they said was, absolutely not. It's never going to work. It's, we're conservative. He's Orthodox. We'll have to do separate seating. Nobody's going to like that. Everything under the sun of why it wouldn't work. So then there came about a day of reckoning about 6 months before elections came up. And our synagogue was struggling. We were struggling to keep our doors open. Our membership was dropping. We used to get members from the local Air Force bases around town. That wasn't happening anymore. We would get some members from the casinos. When the casinos came to the coast, that didn't happen anymore. So finally, our board had to make a very difficult decision of what do we do to keep our doors open? So fast forward, what we did was we merged with Chabad, and now our synagogue, it's not a conservative synagogue, we're a traditional synagogue, and we do some things that are more Orthodox. We do some things that are a little bit more conservative reform. But one thing that we strive ourselves to do was to be open to anybody, to be welcoming to anybody and everybody. And as we started having, so we've had the Chabad rabbi as our full-time rabbi for 3 years now. Our membership has increased. Our Sunday school is probably the biggest it's ever been, which is 15 kids. And one thing that we've seen that works is we thought outside the box. We had to do what we thought. We had to do something that was just unheard of to combine. And our services are more Orthodox. I mean, there is separate seating, but the rabbi does do English. He talks about the Parsha every week. One lady who lives like 5 minutes from the synagogue has never come to the synagogue. She decided to come for one community Shabbos dinner and goes, Rabbi, can you teach a class on studying the Torah and different parshas every week? So now we have a Sunday right after Sunday school where the rabbi talks about certain parts of the Torah. And we have a vibrant women's circle. We just have we just started a men's club. And really, we have some events that are great. And we keep doing them over and over again, like our Purim shuttle. Believe it or not, Purim is probably our biggest holiday of the year. And we'll probably have 50 people that come. People that we don't normally see besides high holidays will come to Purim every year. And then we also do a monthly learning session. So we try to cater to what our congregation wants. We try to have a little bit of the social aspect as well as the religious aspect, but at the end of the day, we want Jewish people on the Mississippi Gulf Coast to feel comfortable, whatever that is, to feel comfortable. And we feel that our rate of having that person come to our synagogue to become a member is very high because of that. we don't tell, I mean, we talk about membership, but we don't tell them, well, you're not welcome at this event because you're not a member. We open it up to anybody with hopes that it would be their idea to become a member. And obviously at the end of the day, that's what we want. That's what we need in order to keep our doors open. And frankly, it's worked. And it's something that we don't see any slowing down. We see our numbers consistently improving from a donation standpoint, as well as a membership standpoint. And I'd be willing to go into more details with anybody else who's interested, but it's working, and we are very happy to be able to have a full-time rabbi as well as have a vibrant. It's a small congregation, but it's a vibrant congregation, and we're very happy to have that. And I appreciate Noah the time and everybody's for listening to me.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Marcia.
Okay. Thank you for coming tonight. We've all been in your shoes or your seat, and it's good to be together to talk about how we can help one another. When I was the president of Temple B'nai Israel in Olean, New York, and started our journey with JCLP in 2012, David Sarnett visited us and asked us some very important and difficult questions. These questions were hard not only to hear, but to realize they really pertain to us. At this time, our membership had dwindled to probably about 20 family units. We had no children in religious school, and those who left Olean for college never returned. We had some very dedicated volunteers who kept Temple B'nai Israel viable. But once we convinced our congregants that the building was too large, the congregation was too small, and we really needed to make a plan as to what to do with our temple items, our temple building, and our temple money. We also had a cemetery to consider. Answering these questions were very difficult, but we realized that we did need to make a plan, and we needed to have a legacy. And that was being with the JCLP was the right agency to help us. They were very patient. David Sarnett made several trips to Olean, New York, and in 2014, we had a congregational vote, and we made a draft legacy plan. Some of our money was sent to the foundation in Buffalo, New York. We also had a relationship with the Buffalo Cemetery Organization. We sent some things to the archivist in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we had the good fortune of selling our building to a local theater group in July of 2019. I was so afraid we were going to have an evangelical church in there. Fortunately, we found some space in a Catholic church for a congregation to hold services. Recently, we had the opportunity for one of our congregants who had donated a Torah cover to the temple to donate a Torah with a cover to his grandson's summer camp. At this time in 2023, Temple B'nai Israel in Olean, New York, has maintained engagement with a few dedicated volunteers. They provide engagement for the approximately 15 units that are there. It holds Shabbat services twice a month, celebrates all the holidays, and has an opportunity to serve those Jews in the community the best they can. They also are active in interfaith events. There are no Jews moving into Olean, so their motivation is to engage those who are left and keeping the community aware of the Jewish community in the area. Temple B'nai Israel owes a truckload of gratitude to the JCLP for sticking with us, for helping us form this plan, for connecting us to those who could help us in the state of New York, and now for those left have a clearer future. They know what to do when the last member has to turn off the lights. Thank you, JCLP, for helping us with your team of worthy soldiers to find those hard questions, answer them, and support those people who are still in Olean, keeping Temple B'nai Israel viable. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you to all 5 of you for giving us insight into how you are able to engage your congregants. A number of the chats asked for some information about from the speakers' presentations. We'll send it to you once Ed sends that information on. What I'd like to do is invite anybody who has something to say about a successful engagement strategy that you're using at your temple. We don't have, with your permission, I know it's after 8 o'clock, but well, Jewish time, we didn't start at 7, so Jewish time, we don't have to end at 8. But if you would like to unmute yourself, state your name and your community, and then briefly share, please briefly share your engagement strategy. Anybody have anything to share?
I do.
I can't see everybody on the thing, so just.
I do.
All right, Ann Grand
Ann.
Rapids. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
What we're trying is, for example, Purim, our Purim spiel is members from our conservative synagogue and our temple, Temple Emmanuel, our Reform congregation. And then after the Purim spiel, we'll divide up and do either a traditional Megillah reading or a Mad Lib one, and bring back the community together as, you know, to socialize as one big group. And I think we are getting some younger, like the 20, 30-year-olds, because our Reform Temple doesn't have services on Saturday, just Friday night, and we only have them on Saturday. And so I am noticing that we're getting the younger ones in who want that traditional service. Problem is we don't get them all the same week, which makes it look small. But I think part of it is to take away the sense of competition between the two synagogues in our town, and bring them together as one big community without walls.
Great, thank you. Bernie King Smith, Kingston.
Thanks. No, actually, it's Naples right now, if you look behind me. But yeah, I formerly led the synagogue in Kingston, JCLP board member. It's more an observation, Noah, as you know, I can do, is that I was listening to all the presentations, and they're all wonderful ways of engaging and all very different. I know when I was struggling to keep my synagogue going, the one thing we found in an engagement plan to keep, you know, the community going is to have a variety of things. Because not everyone wants to go to services, not everyone wants to go to, you know, whatever. But in the engagement, you know, approach you want to use, some really different things will bring different groups in that will actually engage a large part of the community. So I just sort of point that out. You know, some people don't go to services, but they love going out and working socially in the community, soup kitchens and things like that. So, you know, a variety of ideas, I think will build a larger community legacy-wise. Thanks.
Right. Thanks, Bernie. Lori. Unmute yourself, Lori.
Yep. Takes me a minute to figure it out. We have
Where are you from?
Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Okay, we have quite a vibrant community with only 70 members. We have lots of things going on. We have Midrash. One thing we do that's been very successful is we have Super Shabbat once a month during the winter. And what that is, it's SOUPER. And 1 or 2 people make a homemade soup. And we have dinner before us. Everyone brings a little something. And it's just brought people in who normally wouldn't come to a Friday night service. And we will get 30 people there for a small scan. Plus there are all these people who are online, but that brings in a lot of people. We have a spiel going, we've advertised it for this weekend, and it's where no spiel has gone before.
Yeah.
It's a Star Trek theme. So hopefully we'll bring people, and we have a lot of different programs. We have one coming up with a local weather forecaster about why they're always wrong. We have a member who's going to be teaching cards, how to making holiday cards, making your own cards. I mean, we just have a variety of things going on all the time. And it's we're lucky. We have a lot of people, but the problem is we're not bringing in the young people. So.
Thank
That's
you.
Mhm.
And bringing in the young people is also a topic we need to address.
Yeah.
Marcia.
I just wanted to say, and I enjoyed listening to Ryan about their the Chabad and his temple joining together. On this call, there is a friend of mine, Kimberly Weinberg, who is from Bradford, Pennsylvania. And a lot of times Olean and Bradford would join together to do things together. I mean, we're both small towns, we're both small congregations, and that seemed to be a nice way to engage. Also, I see a caller from Erie, Pennsylvania. We used to do things with the synagogue in Erie, Pennsylvania. And, you know, as you do what you have to do and what you've got available to try to make it work.
Thank you. Jim Fisher from Muskegon, Michigan.
Good evening, everybody. We're 135 years old as a congregation and have about 50 families. Very strong board. We continue to have 15 or 16 people attend monthly board meetings. So the engagement there is really excellent. What I wanted to share is that for over 20 years, several of you have talked about potlucks. We have Shabbat dinners typically on a Friday night for at least 4 of the summer months. We're in the northern part of the country, so the summers are precious to all of us. And so in June, July, August, and September, families host a Shabbat in their homes, and we get anywhere from 20 to 40 people that attend, and they've been wonderful.
Thank you. Any other comments? Going once. If you want to unmute yourself and share. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Marcia to conclude this evening. I will say that what you'll all get is a copy of the recording, a link to the recording, the PowerPoint, the engagement, I guess, checklist, which hopefully all of you will add. Some of the things that you've even mentioned tonight should go onto that list. Any information about from the chat that is worth doing. And then you're also going to be receiving an email with a link to the social forum on our website and instructions how to do it. And as I said earlier, I asked my 11-year-old granddaughter to help set that up. It's just a joke. So you'll be getting that. And then the planning committee, Ann, Marcia, Sam, Leslie, David, and I will be meeting to set the next meeting, which probably will be sometime, I guess, around the summer, early summer. We'll try to keep our meetings quarterly. Okay, Marcia.
Okay. Thank you so much for attending our first President's Forum. We hope we have answered your questions and made you start to think about some other things. If something pops into your head and you would like us to include it in the next forum, please let us know. We appreciated your participation, insights, and honesty. JCLP is the place to get your questions answered. With hope, peace, and happiness, good night and good luck.
Thank you all.